Welcome to the Running Channel podcast with me, Rick Kelsey, him, Andy Baddeley, and her, Sarah Hartley. Very recently, Faith Kipyegon lined up in Paris trying to become the first woman to run a sub 4-minute mile.
A lot of hype, spectacle. I was tuned in on tenterhooks, genuinely just no idea whether she was going to be able to do it. Really exciting. But then that got us all thinking, how hard is it to actually run a sub 4-minute mile?
But we've got someone in the room who's actually done it. Who's that?
Was it you? Was it you? No, it's the person with the most aerodynamic head. But yeah, we're going to be talking through how hard is it to break it, as well as going through some recent running news and answering your questions. So let's get into it.
That's the weirdest backhanded compliment I've had on the podcast, I think. The person with the most aerodynamic head. And we did talk about last week how a little bit of texture, i.e. the stubble here, is better for aerodynamics than something being completely smooth sometimes.
There you go. So what number do you go on?
Oh, this is just no guard, like a zero, as close as it'll go.
This is razor.
Do you remember
No, it's not a razor.
It's not a razor.
Do you remember how offended Andy got when someone in the Running Channel office said, "Oh, so you do actually have to shave it"?
They thought my head was totally bald and it never grew. Yeah, that's not the case.
Can I first thank everybody who has voted so far for the British Podcast Awards and the Listener's Choice. If you've not done it already, I did it just before we started recording.
It's taking you until now to do it.
You can't vote for yourself.
Can't you?
Oh.
No, I have twice.
Once. It's against the rules, Sarah, just once.
I got my mum to do it as well.
Okay,
I'm so glad that you admitted to that. Google British Podcast Awards vote, then type in the Running Channel. It will then pop up. It sends you an email. Click confirm. Done.
Very cheeky there, because you fill it in, you click vote, but you haven't voted yet, so you need to confirm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
We would very much appreciate it. So if you have enjoyed our wafflings for the last couple of years, or last couple of weeks, if you've only just joined us, then
couple of days.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long you've been listening. This might be the first time that you listen.
Yeah.
And you still need to do it.
Yeah. In fact, if you are new to us as the Running Channel, I've got to say, I watched a video. I always watch your videos. I don't just watch videos if I'm in them, by the way.
Shocking.
Is that what you thought?
That is absolutely what I thought.
That is exactly what I thought.
I think that's cruel. I watched Andy's dealing with setbacks, how I failed to win an Olympic medal. Sarah, have you seen it?
Yeah, incredible video.
Oh, thanks.
It is. I think I'm going to go far as saying this, and a lot of people said this in the comments. I think it's the best video we've ever made.
Oh, wow.
Which is a shame because only about 10 people watched it.
Yeah, if you haven't gone and watched this video, then it's a little bit different to what we would usually do on the Running Channel. But Andy recently found, amongst his millions of children, a box of your old psychology notes from when you were competing, your kind of Olympic cycles.
Yeah, just the random scribblings, almost the journaling that I did during the high periods, the low periods, when things were going really well and when they weren't, as to how I kind of dealt with all of that. Some of them just on scraps of paper in a hotel, because I would always do it the night before a race, write down a whole bunch of stuff.
I think it's really interesting as well, because for so many people, especially with social media, there's so much kind of noise to listen to. I don't think people kind of comprehend like living with injury or living with disappointment, or, the Olympics are 4 years apart. So there's quite a lot of thinking time that you've got, like if one Olympic Games hasn't gone your way. So if you are someone who is looking to learn a little bit more about the kind of psychological side of running and how elite athletes deal with it, because I think friend of the podcast, Chris Taylor, made an incredible point when he shared the video. I think everyone assumes that just because you're an elite athlete who can run really, really fast, that then must mean that you have like a brain of steel, or like you can't experience any of the self-doubt or any of the kind of things that the rest of us average runners might experience. But actually the pressure's ramped up, the kind of the amount of pressure that you're having to deal with is heightened, and that's quite hard to deal with. Yeah,
I was racked with crippling self-doubt at various different points. And then the other thing is that I tried to make the point in the video, I don't, it's hard watching yourself back, but that I think for ages I couldn't understand or couldn't get my head around the idea that you could be both mentally tough in the sense of like being able to deal with huge setbacks, being able to race at the highest level, being able to deal with the pressure and all that sort of stuff. But you could also suffer from mental health issues or mental health difficulties in terms of depression, anxiety, whatever. You can have both of those things and they can coexist. And having the depression or the anxiety doesn't make you mentally weak. It's a totally different thing. It's like you can be physically strong in the gym, but also you could break a leg. They're separate things. They're not mutually exclusive.
No, it was absolutely excellent. Meanwhile, back in the real world, the rest of us have just been, jogging around parks at weekends. And on Friday night, I stayed up, this is last week, watching Glastonbury. Probably the latest I've stayed up. I mean, I don't think I've gone to bed much after 12 since I've had children. So I went to bed, had a bit of the G stuff.
Yeah. For any new listeners, that would be Gavi, which is a white wine from Italy.
Wine,
yeah.
not Gaviscon.
Woke up and I thought, oh gosh, I can't do parkrun this morning. I'm lying on the sofa. I've had an Alka-Seltzer. It's 8:39.
A what?
An Alka-Seltzer?
What's that?
It's like basically something that helps your head.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of a fizzy thing that you drop in a
Like a
glass of
Barocca.
water.
Yeah, and it's 8:39.
Settles your stomach, I think.
8:39, and I was like, oh god, there's no way I could do parkrun this morning. Absolutely no way. Fast forward 21 minutes, I'm on the start line. What happened in those 21 minutes?
What did
I
happen?
have no idea.
I tell you what happened. He just remembered he's born motivated.
Hang on, I am Rick Kelsey.
Yeah.
I can do parkrun.
It doesn't even
I
have
can
to-
do anything I set my mind to.
Yes, exactly.
I've got.
Apart from look after his children
I got-
for 4 days without his
Well,
wife.
Yeah,
I'm
there's that,
motivated
yeah.
to get other people
Yeah.
to do that.
I'm still in the room, still here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How are you?
I got runner's guilt.
Did you?
Yeah, I got runner's guilt. I thought
Was it your turn?
It
Because
was
you
my
and
turn,
your
yeah,
wife
because we-
alternate.
Yeah.
Oh, because then you're like, well,
So
I'm not
were
going to
you
get to go for
thinking-
2 or 3
yeah.
weeks.
I'll lose my week. So I just got guilt, and I just got there and I thought, right, I'm just going to jog round.
And then-
I'll do 5 minute per kilometre. Sprinted the first 2, didn't I? And then just died.
It's so hot.
This is such a you problem.
Sprint.
Do you enjoy it? Type 2 fun?
Yeah,
glad you
type
went?
2, yeah. I think I ran like 4:29 the first 2,
Didn't
and then
ask.
went down to about 5:15 in
time.
the last 3. Did I have a good time? I had a good time at the end. Yeah, you?
Yeah. I actually had quite a good week of running, to be fair. I did a hill sprint session, which absolutely wrecked me. Did my first tempo run in what feels like years. They're not great, are they?
No.
Really awful. Rolling 300s. 300 metres at 4:15 and then 300 metres at 5:05.
Per kilometre.
I think I did that twice out of the 8 times that I was supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Very fluctuating.
What? So you do 3? Oh, so you do one at one pace, then the next one.
Yeah, but it's just continuous. There's
It's
no
continuous,
breaks.
right?
And I didn't plan a route, so I was just hopelessly running around in the heat. And I did it at 1 p.m.
Why did you do that, Sarah?
Wow, what is the matter?
Well, sometimes I question my methods,
Yeah,
and I
you should.
question
Yeah.
them quite a lot.
Yeah.
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 I ran at 7 a.m. on Saturday.
Yeah,
to
much better.
Yeah. Although the car didn't start. So by the time I actually got out, it was like 7:35.
I feel like you have a lot of car
I
difficulty.
know, it's doing my head in. But I was still, even though I knew that the car probably wouldn't start again after my run, I still went because I was so keen to do my run. I was driving to meet a friend for part of the run. I had a 90-minute run to do and I wanted to go somewhere flat. So I went through the trouble of jump starting my car to go to do this run, knowing full well that probably at the end of the 90-minute run, I wasn't able to get home.
Were you?
No, it didn't start after my run either. But the friend who I was
So
running
what
with helped
did
me
you-
jump start it again. I'd taken the cables with me.
Oh, nice.
So I was dedicated.
Are you jump starting your car every time to use it?
No.
I used to, because it just reminds me. Do you remember my Nissan Sunny?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
When
I used to have to bring a hammer. Whenever I went out, I brought a hammer, be like going to the cinema or something, and open the bonnet, whack the starter motor 3 times, and then turn it on, and it went. So I'd
Really?
carry a hammer around with me for about 6 months.
I don't think I knew that. I don't think I
Didn't
ever
you?
saw you whack.
I
the starter
I
motor with
always had a
hammer.
backpack. Or, no
I
matter-
do
if I went to
remember-
the cinema anywhere. Because
Why
I
didn't you
always
just
had a
keep
hammer.
it in the car?
I do remember you driving
Oh, yeah.
around.
You were probably on a list somewhere.
He's on a few
Oh,
lists.
it's Hammer Man. He's back again.
No, it's in
Never
case,
takes the
in
hammer
case,
out.
In case
Hammer
my
time.
mum or dad needed the hammer, so I had to bring it to and from. It was the house hammer.
The same kind
Yeah,
of
but
same
whether
story.
you're out, whether the hammer's in the cinema and whether it's in your car, does it
Yeah,
really
you can't
make
take
a
a hammer into the
difference,
cinema,
does
mate.
it?
That's just
I carried it around because we'd use a hammer quite a lot.
yeah. You'd hammer in the
Buy
morning.
another hammer. Oh.
Sorry.
That's a him, isn't it?
This is, I just realised that was silly.
Yeah, but in the same, I remember you picking me up in that car, and I've never seen somebody drive a car with the seat so far back and so far reclined, like he was in some kind of like US movie, with his wrist just on top of the steering wheel, one hand out the window.
Oh, that is absolutely tragic.
Yeah.
Speaking of hammers, running etiquette, definitely don't run with a hammer. And that is exactly, although we didn't actually talk about your hammer in this episode, but this week's club episode of the podcast is talking all about running etiquette.
Yes. We
had a bit of a discussion,
We had a bit of a debate.
Yeah. There's a few things that are more controversial, some that are less controversial, but we asked a bunch of questions. And so we're also hoping that some of you listening might email into podcast@therunningchannel.com, because I feel like there's an entire extra episode about what fails you might have achieved in running etiquette or seen someone else achieve. So I'd love to know that. But if you would like to listen to that episode, then please join the Running Channel Club and you can find out exactly what it is we were waffling on about.
One thing we were talking about is track etiquette, and Faith Kipyegon absolutely smashed track etiquette.
Yes, she did.
She not only took lane 1, she had a whole pack of people around her. So she talk about this 4-minute mile attempt.
Yeah, I mean, she had to go some way from her previous best. I think she had to improve her past performance by 3.1% in order to run a sub 4-minute mile.
Yeah,
and she was in Paris.
Yeah, she needed to drop 7.65 seconds off her previous best, which was set in Monaco.
Yeah, so it was a big ask, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said in last week's episode that had she achieved it, it would have been probably the greatest feat in athletics history ever, full stop.
Bit bigger than Kipchoge running
I think so, yeah. And I think that's because
sub 2 hour.
Yeah, so he needed to improve by 1.6%, I think, from his previous world record when it was 2:01:39 to go sub 2 hours. And Faith needed to improve by over 3%, so basically twice as much. It was twice as hard.
So fewer people have run a sub 4-minute mile than have climbed Everest.
Yeah, I actually tried to find the latest number. So from what I could see on the all-time list, and these given that Faith was trying to be the first woman, these are all men. So 2,096. So 2,096 people as of the 27th of June, 2025.
And Roger Bannister.
And actually 8 people on that list have run 3 minutes 59.99 seconds. So just scraping in on electronic timing.
What did you do?
3:49.38.
Oh, so you nailed it.
Comfortably under.
Yes. At that point,
was that 2017?
That was 2008.
Do you know how many sub 4-minute miles you did or you've done?
I was proud because there was a period where I'm pretty sure I ran a sub 4-minute mile every year for about 10 years.
Yes, that was it.
My first one was 2004, so I remember that. I've got 2 empty champagne bottles in my house. One is from my wedding day, and the other one is from my first ever sub 4-minute mile. Andy Baddeley, my coach, the moment that we got back to the race hotel, he was so excited. It was Crystal Palace, 2004. Yeah. And I ran 3:56, I think. And it was one of my first ever chances of running in like those big. It wouldn't have been a Diamond League, but
I see. But weren't you really happy towards the end of your career? That's why I mentioned 2017, because you ran a sub 4 right at the end. Yeah,
so 2016, when I was trying to get back to running the Rio Olympics, and this was post knee surgery and stuff, because 2 of us have had knee surgery actually, Rick.
Oh yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't normally get to talk about mine.
You don't mention it enough.
No.
Yeah.
Is that one of the things? If you get knee surgery, you have to.
You have to drop the word osteotomy into every.
Well, I didn't have one of those. But 2016, I'd sort of. Things hadn't. I wasn't as good as I used to be, and I was just about coming to terms with that, but still chasing the dream. And then I ran 3:59.4, which is exactly the same time that Bannister ran, and I ran it at Iffley Road. It was so hot, about 35 degrees.
Really.
And my Andy was there with me, my coach, and actually his son Ollie was there as well. I think both of his sons might have been there as well. But Ollie's the big running fan, and I got a picture with them after the race. And now they're old enough to come for a run with me, which is pretty cool.
Nice. But she didn't do it.
No, unfortunately not. Faith did not quite make it. So she was doing pretty well on the splits. So should we go through the details of kind of what you need to achieve? So the mile is 1,609 metres. So it's 4 laps and 9 metres of a track in lane 1.
Because she started slightly back.
She started that night. You start at 9 metres. There's a 9 metre curve, the mile start line that's just back from the start finish line. Yeah. So she started there. And that does make the splits quite complicated.
Yeah.
Broadly, because they in a race, if you're watching one of the big races on TV, the mile's not on that often, they'll show you the split at usually 400, 800, 1200 meters. So when you get the last split, you've still got 409 meters to go. Either that, or they'll give you the split as they go through the start finish line, which means you're getting the 409, 809.
Yeah.
Which just makes it quite hard to keep track of exactly.
So what splits were they giving?
I think they were giving
the 400,
800, 1200.
Yeah, that's so complicated to do that.
Yeah. But it means
just because the extra 9 meters.
And she probably wasn't looking, but as a runner, certainly in the earlier parts of my career when I was focused on, or specific races, I was focused on times rather than competing, then you'd clock the big clock at 200 meters. So there's a big clock there, and then there's a big clock at the start finish line. So there's one on either side. And in big races, actually, a clock every 100 meters. So there's 4 clocks, and you can see them on the inside of the track. But it's really complicated in the mile because when you see that first 200 meter split, it's actually 209 meters. And then it's always too fast, the first 200 anyway. So knowing how fast you're going is almost impossible.
So it's the first one that's just a little bit longer. The first split.
Well, depending,
I see what you mean.
In that maths, then when you're looking at it.
For her to achieve this, she'd have to run at a speed of 24 kilometers an hour, and treadmills don't even go that fast.
Yeah, most of them that's probably the aim here is to try and put it into context how difficult it is. And this wasn't my idea, by the way. This isn't let's make Andy feel great about himself.
Yeah.
How good are you?
Well, not this good anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's staggering how fast it is. 15 miles an hour is exactly 4-minute miling. And you've got to run every 200 meters in just under 30 seconds.
But of course, this was not natural. She had a team of pacers who used that kind of, if anyone's seen the Kip Chigi Marathon attempt, she had the diamond formation, which is all, cuts down your wind resistance. She also had a pair of shoes that you wouldn't be allowed to use in proper competition. And she also wore this aerodynamic golf ball style suit that we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Had the dimples on it to try and
dimples on it. And then she had the arm sleeves. So she had kit that you could not wear in professional athletics.
I don't know
if
whether
you
you could wear the vest and the bodysuit. I don't know whether there'd be rules against that or not. I'm not sure there are any, to my knowledge, any rules about.
But the shoes, she couldn't wear the shoes.
I don't think so, because I think they had an extra carbon plate on the bottom.
Yeah.
So that's complicated.
Is there an element of that that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable about...
Well, that's what Kipchoge's was the same, though.
Yeah, I know. But so when we're talking about, isn't this amazing that you run a sub 4 minute mile? Okay, so you ran a sub 4 minute, but you did it within the rules. It's almost showmanship.
Well, it's a marketing exercise for sure, but we're all talking about it. And I think it's a bit, the idea of the Breaking 2 marathon was to see what was possible. He still had to physically cover that distance. And the same here, Faith Kipyegon would have still had to physically cover that. And it showed, even with all that stuff, it shows how hard it is. Because, and watching it, I was thinking, well, the biggest difference was the pacing was way less effective, I think. Not least because she needed to be in lane 1, so she couldn't have people all the way around her, right? She couldn't have people on her
you couldn't have
inside.
the V with her in the middle. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
They also, if you think about in the marathon, you can mess up, you can mess up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds a mile in terms of the pacing, and it's not going to ruin everything. Yeah. And you've got ages to dial into your rhythm and settle into the routine and stuff. These guys had to, both Faith and all of her pacemakers, had to get to within probably 0.1, 0.2, 0.5 maybe of a second of the pace within the first 100 meters. Otherwise it's game over. Can't go too fast, can't go too slow. They did a pretty good job. But I thought the pacing around her, because of that, looked a little bit more ragged, because it's so much harder to control at that pace and to get it exactly right. The margin for error is so much smaller. I
wonder if, because there's the Wavelight Technology, which is going around the inside of the track. So you might have seen they had various different colours of lights, which were the current record, the sub 4, the sub 4 light. If they put, because the whole reason you have pacers is for the wind resistance, if they also automated that, so they kind of attached, I'm not an engineer, but say they attached a robotic arm and then created a curve so that she was literally running towards a shield, and then that's just went round. I wonder if that, because it does just have to be such a metronome, and actually the adjustment with the amount of people that she had around her, if all of them realised, okay, we're a bit off. Everyone's little surges, you create a ripple effect, and then you so quickly lose a few seconds.
That's why this is more. I get it, but isn't that why this is more a bit of a battle of technology than it is as well as a battle of human endurance? Because if you're creating this technology that enables people to do these subhuman feats and achieve these amazing things, but you're not allowed to do that when you're actually in competition, then it's still fun. I still like it. I loved watching it. It was great. I was like, wow. But the technology stood out more for me than just as much as the power of her trying to make it.
Yeah, but I think it showed the limitations to what technology you can employ on the track. I think Sarah's right. Like if you're doing it in a straight line, then you could build like a big vehicle that would just block all of the wind and she could run behind that. But they wanted to do it, I think, in a way that felt more purist. And also I think the tech that Kipchoge could have in his shoes is much more significant in its like the stack height, so how thick the foam could be and therefore the benefit that you get. Whereas the spikes, even if they were going to go crazy and illegal on whatever the spikes were allowed to do, you've still got to go pretty fast around quite tight corners. And
I wonder
the
if
higher stack the shoes are, the more difficult that is.
I hope there will be a second attempt, because I feel like there's loads of tweaks that we'll see. Like, will they just do it as one straight mile? Will they change the pacing? Will they change the kit and the equipment? But I think the whole thing, from what you said, like they're really not that comparable, like a sub 2 hour marathon and a sub 4 minute mile. But I do think what we've seen from this attempt is just how exposing it is and just how kind of scary those faster distances are, because yes, it only lasts for 4 minutes, but every single second is under scrutiny in those 4 minutes, and you can pick it apart, pull it back together. So I want to see a second attempt.
And we've spoken to loads of marathoners, ultra runners, all that sort of stuff, and they say that the fast stuff, 5Ks or even a 1500 or a mile, is way tougher for them mentally and physically than the long stuff, because it's a totally different mindset. You're uncomfortable right from the first moment.
Yeah.
You have so little margin for error, and I don't think in a standard track context, I don't think it's possible. I think that Faith Kipyegon's a generational talent already. And then you saw how hard it was, even with all of that. So it'd be interesting to see if they try it again. I had some extra stats on that. Like only 6 women have ever run under 4:15.
Wow.
Before Faith's record, Sifan Hassan had set the world record with, or she was number 2 anyway. She's number 2 on the list with 4:12. So, I mean, that's not far off a full. So that's only basically at 4 minute miling, you're running 15 seconds for every 100 meters. So if only 6 women all time have run under 4:15 in the history of the world, that's only 6 women that could have been within 100 meters of someone running a 4 minute mile at the end. That's how big that task is, which I think is
whereas
crazy.
with the marathon I think the main thing with this is, hopefully we've got the world champs only 10 weeks away, 9 weeks probably when people are listening to this. It builds excitement for what you're about to see. We've already talked about on the podcast before on how, I can't remember which competition it is, but the 1500 is getting pulled out and the miles getting put in.
Yeah.
This really helps bolster that in my mind,
Yeah.
because I think there will be a lot of people who will be confused by the 1500 meter results after watching this. But you have got like a whole 109 meters difference.
Yeah, and we got a question from someone asking recently about why it's 1500 meters in the Olympics and not the mile.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer for sure, but I think it's because we've talked about this before, but I think that when it's that competitive and you're trying to qualify for the next round, you've got the tactics and so on. It's just complicated starting on a bend. So you start 9 meters before the bend, you've got 12 people in the race, all trying to get into lane 1 in 9 meters.
Whereas
as opposed to starting down the back straight.
Carnage.
Yeah, it's
you
clean.
can sort yourselves out.
I wonder if that is a direction of travel though, where we start actually ramping up the amount of events that are doing the mile instead of the 1500.
I do think the mile is quite fun. Maybe we should all do an all-out mile.
I think you should all do an all-out mile. I will happily pace you guys to whatever you think you can do.
No, you have to do an all-out mile too.
Oh, no,
don't think you're getting away from this. If you had to watch him get competitive here. If you had to run an all-out mile right now, what time would you want to run?
Under 4:30.
Oh, straight in. No
Thought
hesitation.
about that.
No, I'll pace you. 4:30.
4:30.
Yeah.
Really? So
Yeah,
you
I don't know
think,
if I can do it, but that's
and
what I
sorry,
have in my
and you last ran a sub 4 minute mile in 2016.
Yeah.
And you think 9 years later,
Yes. Age 43.
30 seconds.
Still got it.
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
all
still
that's
got it.
happened. Fine.
No, I think
Bearing in mind, we've just talked about how
You said, what would I
big
want
it
to
is
run?
that only a few people have run under 4:15.
Women.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
15 seconds.
Yes.
And you've just doubled that.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's the best women.
But hey, don't let
could I
me
be within
put you
15
down.
seconds of the best women in the world? No. Okay, maybe I'm dialing this back.
No,
4:40.
No, you said it
4:45.
now.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I was going to try and give some extra context.
You'll be walking it by the end of the show.
Yeah,
I would
6
actually-
minutes. 6 minutes.
How much money would you have to be paid to just step out right now and do it?
Do a mile.
Yeah,
In 33
all
degrees.
out.
It's not happening. I'm wearing sliders for a start.
What do you think you
Well,
could
we'll
do,
allow
Sarah?
you to change your
Okay.
shoes. So
I think it's more the biggest problem for me, other than just fitness and ability anymore, would be
minor details.
would be just my like hamstrings going ping as I try and do it and run at that pace.
I honestly think that's the most fascinating thing about Andy is that, like, for the rest of us mere mortals, we just have no concept of how fast we can go.
No.
Whereas Andy knows it so well, it's just his body can't do it anymore.
I'm not able to do it. So I have an extra stat which you might find is interesting. So I said 2,096 men have run a sub 4 minute mile.
Right.
As of the other day. And that's the same number of people who in the marathon have gone sub 2:10:57. So that's the sort of relative difficulty of a 4 minute mile. So pretty hard.
What do you think you could do it in?
I think my mile PB is around about 6:10. So I'd like to
Here we go. Sub 6 minutes.
sneak under 6.
Yeah.
Well,
But that was in a
exciting.
session.
90-second laps.
What would you want?
Well,
90 seconds.
I'd want to do the first lap in
So you're going to pace it like
60
parkrun?
seconds. So just go all
A
out.
60-second lap.
60
4
all out.
minute
You have-
miling is what you want to pace
you want-
yourself.
you
No,
want
so
to-
my first lap, I want to do it in 60 seconds.
I don't think you can do a lap in 60
Don't you
seconds.
know? Come on.
Okay. First,
This is kind of the point of this episode.
first.
We were joking beforehand
This
about
is
how
you are the British public that
Yeah,
thinks
exactly.
that they could
Yeah.
compete
All right,
in the
first lap,
Olympics in the
first lap,
100
80
meters.
seconds. First lap, 80 seconds.
No, I think
Second
no,
lap,
don't be
100.
that's like 5:20 pace, I think. 80 seconds.
Oh, no. I reckon I could do, okay.
Yeah, but then you've got to do 3 more
We did a
laps.
video on this,
Yes, we
actually,
did do
quite
a video
recently.
on
What
this.
did I get
and your
around in a
little
lap?
pink face was
Yeah, but-
very destroyed at the end of 1 lap, and you have to
What
do
did
4.
I get around? I think I did 68. I think 68.
You did a 68-second lap.
Yeah. So I do 68 for the first one.
Wow, genuinely, I'm
Look at the
like, yeah,
look at
yeah.
the surprise.
No,
Yes.
sorry, producer Owen's just nodding.
I'm almost certain I did
I want to
68.
recount.
No, I'm almost certain. There's a video out there. So I do the first one in
Owen's
68.
watching it now.
I do the second
think
one
it was
in the
78.
second lap in 168 seconds. The third lap
In
in 268 seconds,
Yeah.
and the fourth plus a bit.
So we're already
in-
about 15
in-
minutes
Yeah,
now, I
300. Yeah, so I'd get round.
I think you and Sarah have a good little ding dong over a mile. I'd quite like to see that.
That'd be quite.
ding dong.
That'd be quite good.
Ooh.
That would be quite a good.
Should we do that?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm up for that.
We're actually coming to your park run in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
Maybe we'll do the first mile of that as a little ding dong.
Oh, not in Hellsfire, because you got to go up Hellsfire Hill.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That little inconvenient
Wow.
mound of
Right.
gravel.
Should we finish on a slightly scientific note?
Yeah.
Of just that. The answer to how hard it is, I think it's pretty hard to run a sub 4 minute mile. But also the bit that people might not realise is just the type of training that you have to do. And so we've talked about it on the podcast before, and it always blows people's mind who've got no idea that when I was training purely to be as good as I possibly could be, about over 1,500 or the mile, I was running 12 times a week, 90 plus miles a week, 13, 14 mile long run at the weekend, and doing 30-minute or 6 mile threshold runs, and then doing all the stuff you might associate with being on the track, doing really fast stuff in spikes on the track. So it's a massive mix of the whole spectrum of stuff. You need to be aerobically really fit, not least because at championships you've also got to run 3 rounds in 2 or 3 days, and then you've got to be fast enough to physically run at that pace. So it's a lot of stuff, a little bit of luck. Yeah, all that goes into it.
Get a good aerobic base. Give yourself a shot.
Do we know Rick's lap time yet? What was it?
80. So
80.
Off mic, Owen has just found out that Rick's alleged 68-second time was 80 seconds.
Oh,
That
mate.
surprises me.
It doesn't
You know
surprise
what?
us.
That surprises me too.
Okay.
I
So-
thought you'd at least
so-
done a 40-second lap.
In no way are we-
Look at him
I look
running.
faster than 80 on
What's
this
the
video.
title of that video, Owen? Right, there you go.
Predict your
If you
lap
want to
time.
go watch Predict Your Lap Time,
should
you
do-
can watch Rick run
I think we should do a video with
80-second
we should do a
lap.
video with Rick now. It's just called Remember Your Lap Time. He doesn't have to do any
It
running.
also was Predict, so you should have remembered your prediction.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
Rick, have I told you about what happened at that video?
No.
So obviously Rick, so clued up on running,
Of
loves
course,
it,
yeah, yeah.
all about track
Yeah.
stuff. So we turn up to the shoot and I'm like, right, okay, mate, write down your prediction. And I think he wrote down, you either wrote down 80 or or maybe he even wrote down 70 or something like
Yeah.
that. James basically stitched him up.
Yes,
Because,
I do remember
because
this.
James is so good at running like all out laps.
Yeah.
So Rick and James, I think, wrote down the same thing. And then we were all laughing, being like, and then told Rick the pace.
Yeah.
And then we cut the cameras and Rick was like, no, but seriously, I need to change that.
I do remember that.
It was like pizza crust gate all
Yeah,
over
I
again.
do remember that. Right, let's do some news.
Okay. Right, so we talked about how hard it is to run 1 mile. How about 495?
Or before we talk about that, how hard is it to introduce this segment, Sarah? 'Cause
Very
you've actually
hard.
had to cut a little bit out of you not
Look,
being
I
able to do
can't
it.
read,
Because you've
okay?
got
It's very
a full
hard.
4 pages of text and
Yeah,
it's
I
just
know.
too much.
Very difficult. Anyway, there was a backyard ultra happening recently, and the men's backyard ultra world record is now 119 laps, which is set by Australia's Phil Gore at the Dead Cow Gully event in Queensland, Australia.
It's always in Australia, these things.
I know. Why do you think it is?
I'm not sure. I
I think they must lay a
these are
snake
tough.
out at the start
Tough,
of each lap,
yeah.
and then that just keeps you going around.
Maybe Ned's.
But
Oh yeah,
pushing
Ned
them on.
Brockman,
Yeah.
also famously tough. This is
So
nuts.
how mad is this though? 119 laps, 495.87 miles, or 798 kilometres.
Yeah, so for anyone not familiar with a backyard marathon,
Ultra.
Backyard ultra. I thought it was called a backyard.
See, look, Andy struggles with reading too.
Oh, yeah.
Backyard Ultra. Yeah.
Sorry, if anyone not familiar, including me, you have to start on the hour every hour for as long as you can, and the lap is there's a standardised lap.
4.167 miles,
There we go.
6.7k.
So you have to run that every single hour, starting on the hour. The first hour period where you don't manage to get to the start line and start your lap on the hour, you're out.
Yeah. Oh, I love as well.
So doing that for 119 hours.
There's only one winner in these events, and technically every single other person is a DNF.
Yeah.
So I don't know when the previous person dropped out, but say they did 118 laps, DNF'd it.
So it's the last person standing.
Did not
essentially.
finish, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, well
crazy.
done. Well done.
Rick's got nothing to add.
I won't be trying that.
Oh, we've entered you into one.
What's
You know,
the?
this is the type of thing
Face.
that you might do. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep quiet and move on.
What's the math say though? Is one lap short of 5 full days? I think of just continuous running.
Yeah.
But without
No,
any
'cause
sleep.
Yeah, no sleep. Well, I mean,
Well-
unless you can run a lap fast enough to then have 20 minutes sleep.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, when
No,
you,
people also though. So there was another backyard ultra recently, and people like napped on the lap.
whilst running.
No, so
possible.
they're
Because
like,
like what are the animals that can sleep standing up?
I think horses can, but I might be wrong there.
We're always wrong on our wildlife. It's definitely not
It's
the
just
Wildlife Channel
not
podcast.
the Wildlife
Yeah.
Channel. But yeah, so say for example you're like out on your lap,
Yeah.
you could do it in 45 minutes,
Yeah.
but you're going to take the full hour. Just have a little powwow.
Just in the
2
bush.
minutes. Yeah.
Funnily enough, on my
Laid-
stag do, one of our co-hosts here, Rick Kelsey.
Slept in a bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of
Did
we
you?
all went orienteering, apart from Rick. Just fell asleep in a bush.
Orienteering.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Hey, we did some fun stuff in the evenings, but we did the other type of fun stuff during the day.
Welcome to the Andy Baddeley Stag Do. Everyone got their maps?
Maps out. Right. Head forth and poker. Everybody got their test tubes. We're going to be testing the water quality.
This is so uncalled for.
Retain
Is
the
it-
information, there'll be a
What's
test at
that
the
in your
end.
pocket, Andy? It's a Bunsen burner. Sterilise.
Well, that started with me trying to make fun of you falling asleep in a bush, and look how this has ended up.
Safety goggles on.
Right, should we do some questions?
Oh, yeah, fine.
Sorry, mate.
Questions. Helen from Ireland. Not very specific.
Okay, we'll have to roll with it.
Yeah.
There's a town called Ireland in England.
Is there?
That's confusing.
That's confusing, isn't it?
The news around UK athletics not funding all athletes for all races. A few thoughts. As someone in Ireland where we have relatively limited funding, we often don't get to send a team, or we can only send athletes and no support. In other sports, teams have to fundraise to go to competitions. One thought I did have is that people are joining run clubs instead of athletics clubs. And is that drop in membership numbers leading to a drop in funding? Here, funding is very linked to the numbers involved. What do you reckon?
Ooh, this is a great point.
I don't think it is directly linked. I think there's...
Oh, Andy's just
Straight in.
straight in.
I think I think that there's a few things. Yeah, I think overall participation will come into sport, will come into the amount of funding overall, I think, for governing bodies through UK sport. But I don't think that they would discount run clubs and only count participation through affiliated, like England Athletics running, like old school athletics running clubs. I think that the real issues in funding have been because British Athletics, which is the governing body or the commercial part of UK athletics, they get a bunch of money from the National Lottery or from UK Sport. And that's based on performance at the elite level. So the more medals you get at an Olympics and stuff, broadly speaking, the more money you get then for the next Olympic cycle. And then they have to work out how to run a business, support grassroots sport, send teams to all the championships, all that sort of stuff through that funding. But they also have commercial funding through sponsors and so on. And in the last 10 years or so, there's been a real decline in how much money British Athletics had. They had to lay off loads of people. They were struggling to find sponsors. They weren't selling out Diamond League events and stuff like that. So loads of the stuff that had put them in a good place previously meant they're in a bad place relatively recently, and they just didn't have the money to retain staff, let alone to send teams to championships and stuff. I think things are slightly better now. They did just sell out the most recent Diamond League, which is coming up very soon in July in London. So that's a massive thing. And once they start to do that, then you get the TV rights, and the TV rights is a big contribution to how much money the governing bodies have. So the elite sports does really affect, to my knowledge anyway. What I don't know for sure is whether there's like the money that comes from lottery funding would be completely like ring fenced and therefore not go to grassroots sport, whether they have to raise money for that separately. But it's a good question. I don't know.
If you're part of a like kind of athletics club though, and you pay your fee, where part of that does go to the affiliation, then could that not have an effect as well? Because it's one, having an effect on the actual club, but then two, less money is going into England Athletics.
For those not in the UK, this is probably not that interesting, I guess, but England Athletics is separate to British Athletics.
Right.
And so England Athletics is the one that, to my knowledge, coordinates all of those club affiliations. And then they're more responsible for the grassroots, they're responsible for the coaching and all that sort of stuff. So that's slightly separate. So yes, fewer people paying their memberships would mean there is less support for. I'm sort of answering my own questions by asking me the right question.
You know what I'd love to see though? More tracks in the UK.
Oh, there's so few.
Oh, imagine.
Yeah, there are. This kind of links back to a debate we had a couple of months ago about a British runner who was selected to compete for Team GB but turned down the opportunity on the basis that there was no funding to take him to that event.
I think that's what this question is about. Yeah. And I think that comes from the financial status of British Athletics as the body responsible for those elites.
Yeah. Can we squeeze in a very quick club question?
Go on then.
Okay, this is from Lucy Campion. And Lucy says, I know we all have them, but don't you just hate it when they do happen? Aha. What's she talking about? You might wonder. I had a bad run this week, and with the race coming up next Sunday, it's not my confidence. Threshold run this morning, no power, no speed, barely a recovery pace. Despite pushing myself, it felt like I was moving through treacle. How do you cope with a bad run day? I'm trying to silence those gremlin voices and just put it down to being one of those things.
Oh, can I help answer this one? So I'm talking to an incredible sports psychologist at the moment who we're going to try and get on the podcast soon. And she has really helped me with a few things in terms of like, how do you frame, sometimes things are going to go badly. So like one thing that she's been saying is sometimes your body could be fighting off an illness and you don't even know about it. So if you go into a race or if you go into a session and you have just absolutely no energy because your body has used up all of your energy fighting off something else, but you don't physically feel ill, that could be what's happening. So
that's really interesting,
how do you cope with that? Or can you focus on things that aren't, so like no speed, could, rather than focusing on like specific paces in that situation, say it's like really hot, or say the only place that you can do your session is on hills, so suddenly all of the paces are out the window. What will give you confidence walking away from that session? are you able to put in the same effort? So like we've talked about rate of perceived exertion. If you score it out of 10, could you still put in that same amount of effort and score it out of 10? And then I think the hardest point here is sometimes we all start a session that is on the training plan, and actually if you had a coach stood next to you, they would tell you don't do this session. It's a bad idea.
Why?
And well, because for loads of different factors, like you might have had a really bad night's sleep, you might just not have it in you, it might be actually detrimental to do this session rather than actually just going, you know what, I'm just going to go for an easy 30-minute jog or do nothing at all. So I think through one, why might that have happened? What are the contributing factors, both within running and externally? 2, if that happens again, what could you do to make you walk away from that session and still feel positive about it or still have something to take away from it? And then 3, don't worry, we all have bad sessions.
Yeah, no, completely. Add 10% as well in the heat. So if you're going for
so much harder,
5 minute per kilometre, add 10%, and then when you look back on it, it won't be as bad.
Yeah, I actually posted in the club saying exactly this the other day, that unexpectedly my recovery run was by far the toughest run of the week. And that's not dissimilar to the idea of doing a session or a workout a week out from a race, because you want it to feel great. So you sort of go into it slightly either with the pressure going, this needs to feel good because otherwise I'm not going to feel great next week, or the opposite for me with the recovery run, where I was blasé about it because it's a recovery run, it's easy. And I was really struggling. Like 20 minutes in, I was like, oh my, this feels so hard. And then actually the next day I had a really tough workout, and that felt great, but that's because I built myself up to it adrenaline wise and I was up for it. Whereas
sometimes you need that though. Sometimes you need a run where you just go, oh, actually running is quite hard. And then the next one feels so much better.
And every single, what I'd consider like a pre-race workout that would do 2 or 3 days before a race during my entire career felt awful. To the point where I was actually a little bit disconcerted when one went really well.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, this is bad.
Because then I was thinking, oh my God, maybe I'm going to have that terrible feeling in the race.
Yeah.
Whereas previously I'd be like, yeah, that's good. I've got it out of my system now.
Yeah. Well, best of luck, Lucy.
Yeah, you'll be all right, Lucy. Just get back on the horse. Hopefully it's a good horse, not an Icelandic one. That's a very niche reference, but it's relevant.
It's a reference to the club, in fact, isn't it? I had a little favour to ask people.
Oh, go on.
If you've been listening to the podcast or watching any of our YouTube videos and you like the running channel, then the club is potentially your way to support us by joining. You might love the extra episodes of the podcast. You might not want any of those at all, or you might find new friends through the community and the app if that's your bag as well. Absolutely no pressure from us, but we'd love to see you in there. And I'm about to launch my half marathon training space in there. So you'll get kind of
Newark.
Yes, Newark half marathon I'll be doing that. You can announce that officially here. So if anyone wants to follow along with me or ask any of the or get your questions answered more quickly than if you've emailed them into the podcast, then
exciting stuff.
The club is the place for that.
See you next time.
Bye.